Back home, Brock was pacing, his anxiety palpable. So, did you see him? What's he like? Is he little? Could I take him? Reba slumped onto the couch, exhausted. He's big, but he's not as big as Doc. Brock's eyes widened. So, what do you think? Is there something going on there? Reba hesitated, choosing her words carefully. The truth, as she perceived it, was ugly. Look, Brock, I was hoping that I could go down to the gym and check things out and come back and tell you that there's nothing to worry about, but Brock leaned forward, his face etched with dread. That's it. Reba? Reba took a deep breath. Okay, I don't know if they're having an affair or not, but if they keep working out like that, they might be having a baby. The words hung in the air, a bombshell. Brock stared at her, his jaw slack. Man, I knew there was something going on. He looked utterly devastated. Just then, Barbara Jean walked in, her post-workout glow radiating confidence. Hey everybody, I'm here, and I'm saying, well. She paused, noticing the grim faces. Oh, don't you hi honey me, Brock growled, his voice low and dangerous. Barbara Jean looked genuinely bewildered. What are you talking about? Did you honestly think that I wouldn't find out about you and Jordan? Brock accused, his voice rising. What? We were working out. It was perfectly innocent. Barbara Jean protested, her eyes darting to Reba. Reba, tell him what you saw. Reba squirmed, caught in the crossfire. I don't want to get involved. She said you're having an affair, Brock interjected, pointing at Reba. Any more than I already am, Reba muttered under her breath, a sarcastic jab at her own unwilling participation. Barbara Jean threw her hands up in exasperation. Okay, Jordan and I are not having an affair. He's gay. Silence. A profound, stunned silence descended upon the room. Reba stared at Barbara Jean, then at Brock, then back at Barbara Jean. What? Reba finally managed to articulate, the word a mere whisper. Barbara Jean rolled her eyes, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. Reba, do you honestly think I would let a straight man grab my breasts? Excuse me, Brock sputtered, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. He grabbed your breasts. He's gay, Barbara Jean reiterated, as if that explained everything. He wasn't touching them, he was arranging them. Reba felt a hysterical laugh bubble up in her throat. Arranging them. The image was absurd, yet somehow, in Barbara Jean's world, it made perfect sense. Okay, then, Reba said, trying to regain some semblance of composure. Everything's fine. Carry on with your lives. No, Reba, everything is not fine, Barbara Jean snapped, her newfound confidence suddenly laced with hurt and anger. I had no idea you were so threatened by the new me. The slim waist, the toned legs, the fellas. Reba repeated, a flicker of amusement in her eyes despite the tension. Oh, the puppies, Barbara Jean clarified, gesturing to her chest. I am not threatened by you, Reba insisted, though a tiny voice in the back of her mind whispered otherwise. Really? Barbara Jean challenged, her gaze piercing. Yeah. Then why'd you go down to the gym? What, were you spying on me? Reba sighed, defeated. No. Okay, I went down to the gym because I thought there was something going on between you and Jordan. Why would you think that? Barbara Jean asked, genuinely puzzled. Because you've changed, Reba said, the words tumbling out, a mixture of frustration and raw honesty. I have not, Barbara Jean protested, her voice rising. Yes, you have, Reba countered, standing her ground. Ever since you lost all that weight, you're pushy and obnoxious, and you always want to be the center of attention. Hello, Barbara Jean scoffed. I've always been that way. Brock, who had been silent for a moment, suddenly spoke up. She kind of got a point there. Yeah, well, something's changed, Barbara Jean, Reba insisted. Barbara Jean's eyes welled up, her bravado crumbling. Yeah, the way you guys look at me, I'm still the same Barbara Jean I always was. I'm just less winded. Reba looked at Brock, then at Barbara Jean's tear-filled eyes. A wave of guilt washed over her. Maybe Barbara Jean was right. Maybe it wasn't just Barbara Jean who had changed. Maybe they had all contributed to this. No, she might be right, Brock conceded, his voice softer now. It could be us. I'm sorry, honey. Reba just got me all worked up. That's... Reba held up a hand, stopping him. The truth, the uncomfortable, revealing truth. needed to be spoken. Look, Barbara Jean, the truth is I think I went down to the gym almost hoping that I'd find you doing something wrong. You know, anything. So I could feel superior to you and your skinny butt. So, I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air, raw and vulnerable. Barbara Jean stared at her tears momentarily forgotten, replaced by a look of disbelief. Then, slowly, a small, triumphant smile. Sorry, Barbara Jean repeated, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Yeah, this is great. For the first time since we've known each other, you want to be me? Reba rolled her eyes. I don't want to be you. I know, Barbara Jean chirped, her smile widening. It's even better. You want to look like me. Reba sighed, a mixture of exasperation and grudging affection. Barbara Jean was still Barbara Jean, even with a new body, and perhaps that wasn't so bad after all. Hey, where are you going? Barbara Jean asked, as Reba turned to leave. Just gonna go grab something to eat, Reba replied, a wry smile on her face. I'll see you next year. The tension had broken, replaced by a fragile truce, a glimmer of understanding, but the ripple effects of Barbara Jean's transformation and Reba's own insecurities were far from over. The following weeks were a strange blend of simmering resentment and tentative reconciliation. Barbara Jean, though still radiating her new pretty confidence, seemed to have dialed back the evangelism, a subtle acknowledgement of the family's reactions. Brock, chastened by the Jordan is gay revelation and Reba's blunt honesty, made an effort to be more attentive, though his attempts often felt clumsy and forced. Reba, for her part, found herself wrestling with a new kind of self. Her confession to Barbara Jean had been liberating, but it had also laid bare a vulnerability she hadn't realized she possessed. One evening, Reba found Van and Jake engrossed in a video game, their faces illuminated by the screen's glow. Hey, buddy, what are we watching? She asked, trying to sound casual. No, we're not, Van mumbled, not looking up. Reba sighed. Want a rock, paper, scissors for it? Van groaned. Fine, let's go. He knew he was going to lose. You're gonna pick scissors, aren't you? Reba just smiled. Get out. The playful banter was a welcome distraction, a return to normalcy. But even in these small moments, the undercurrent of the new pretty dilemma lingered. Cheyenne, Reba noticed, had become quieter, more introspective. Van's earlier comments about bleached-out Halle Berry versus Jan Brady had clearly wounded her, tapping into deeper insecurities. Later, Reba found Cheyenne in her room, staring at herself in the mirror with a critical eye. Hey, honey, Reba said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. Cheyenne barely acknowledged her, still scrutinizing her reflection. Hey baby, I need to talk to you. Reba waited, sensing the weight of Cheyenne's unspoken thoughts. Oh honey, I just got the TV, Cheyenne began, her voice small. Well, I started thinking that maybe you don't think of me as new pretty, because I don't do enough to keep your interest. Reba's heart ached. Van's thoughtless words had clearly twisted in Cheyenne's mind, making her question her own worth. No, honey, you're way hot. Reba tried to reassure her, but the words felt inadequate. Cheyenne sighed. Guilty. But anyway, I thought that maybe I should, change my look every now and then just to keep things fresh. She paused, then pulled out a brightly colored wig, a shocking blonde bob. From a bag, I bought a wig. Reba stared at the wig, then at her daughter's earnest, anxious face. This wasn't about keeping things fresh. This was about desperate validation, about trying to conform to an impossible standard of new pretty. Thank you, Reba said, taking the wig from Cheyenne. Cheyenne, put that down. Listen to me. She looked into her daughter's eyes, trying to convey the depth of her sincerity. I think it's a good thing that when I look at you I don't see the beautiful girl with the killer bod. I see my wife, and I'm attracted to her whether she's all dressed up, ready to go out, or just sitting on the couch wearing those washed-up flannel pajamas. Cheyenne's eyes widened, a slow dawning of understanding replacing the anxiety. Yeah, Reba affirmed, her voice gentle but firm. You're beautiful to me because of who you are. A small, genuine smile touched Cheyenne's lips. I feel kind of stupid. Reba chuckled softly. That's also who you are, and I love it. Come on. She pulled Cheyenne into a hug, a silent promise of unconditional love and acceptance. Where are we going? Cheyenne asked, her voice muffled against Reba's shoulder. "Oh, we are going upstairs," Reba whispered, a playful glint in her eye.